What's the most unprofessional thing a doctor has ever said to you? Had a doctor in the 80s tell my mom my severe life-threatening disease, like, really was not real because there's no real evidence that there is a genetic basis for disease. Despite my genetic disease being well studied. Another doc at the same surgery slapped me hard in the knee and told me I was faking it for a day off school. 6 months later I'd need a full knee reco. And mom kept taking me there. Heart surgery is an outpatient procedure. My insurance company's board certified doctor on justifying why no intensive care or recovery would be authorized. In the end, at least on paper, my unconscious ass, with multiple chest drain plugs and on oxygen, had to be wheeled out onto the curb. Then wheeled into ER and readmitted on account of being in critical condition after heart surgery. Blue Cross really upped the ante on bullying me into dying instead of going through the bother of trying to live without bankrupting myself. I went to the doctors to get my breasts checked. He basically just held and caressed them in a manner he wouldn't have had a chance to feel anything potentially dangerous, and due to them causing me a lot of physical pain I asked him about my options regarding breast reduction surgery. He got visibly angry and told me to never even think about it, and called them beautiful and tender. He was well in his 50s and I was 18-19. I paid like $50 for Master Roshi to ignore my health issues and make me find another doctor who actually wanted to help people. Had a bad head injury when I was a kid, 12 or 13, and saw a bunch of doctors trying to figure out what was wrong. Got a little snippy with one of them over something I don't even remember. Pulled up the medical record years later and she referred to me as a child of the devil in her report. Had to make some phone calls to get the diagnosis removed from my record. That if I wasn't his patient he'd take me home. Apostrophe. S no longer my doctor. Unprofessional. But funny. I had taken my 92-year-old mother to a recheck appointment to her PCP. An apparently new medical assistant was dutifully getting her history by reading off a checklist. When she asked when mom's last period was, I looked at mom a little nervously. She was very old school, very dignified, and would typically never acknowledge to her sons that she had female parts. I saw a rare twinkle in mom's eyes as she calmly replied, "Well, I can't give you an exact number of months, but I'm pretty sure it was sometime in the late 1960s. The assistant had the good grace to laugh with us, apologize, then read the next question. Do you think you might be pregnant? Undefined. When I was in junior high, I went out for the basketball team. I had to take a physical and it had to be done by the school's doctor and not my own. I went in to do the physical and had to get naked. I did so and the doctor looked me over. He saw that I have an inverted breastbone and said, "Wow. That is freakish. You can't be on the team with that." I know that my breastbone makes it look like I have a hole in my chest, but I have never been self-conscious about until that moment. Because this examination was taking place in the boys' locker room in front of other kids wanting to go out for the team too. Everyone started laughing at me and calling me names. I grabbed my speep and left. My mother took me to our regular doctor who reassured me that there was nothing wrong with me and that there are plenty of people who have breastbones just like mine. It didn't help, but I appreciated that she explained it to me. I stopped taking off my shirt in front of others. I was harassed and bullied by my entire class for years to come because a doctor made a comment that he shouldn't have made. You're not depressed. You don't look sad. You must just be tired. Here, take these sleeping pills. But don't take them all at once. I had a doctor comment on how I've lost weight. Fine. I get that. But when I told him I started going to a gym, he told me not to try to build muscle because it will just turn to fat someday anyway. It wasn't what was said. But I did have an appointment where the doctor just never showed up. I was in the examination room for about 45 minutes when an MA walked in and asked me what I was doing there. When I said I was waiting for the doctor already left. We're closing. Instead of calling the doctor back, they made me schedule another appointment. I found a new office instead. Not to me, but about me. I went to see the family doctor over a minor thing. I was an adult at the time and didn't tell my parents because they freak out about anything medical related. My mother went to see him a few weeks later and he told her I'd been to see him. I was so peeping angry. Was given a condescending lecture on how I shouldn't have come and if I just had a cold by both a doctor at a walk-in center and my GP in a follow-up app the week following. I ended up getting rushed into resuscitation a few weeks later with a punctured lung that caused a one-way valve in my lung where air could escape into my chest cavity but not get back out. Because it was brushed off, not properly investigated, it caused a life-threatening condition called tension pneumothorax, where the pressure that had built up over time on one side of my chest caused my lung to collapse completely and started crushing my heart and other lung and compressing, bending the arteries, veins, and esophagus in my neck. When they put a chest drain into me, my chest cavity literally sounded like it was deflating like a car tire puncture. I was looking for a surgeon for my gallstone operation and he asked what meds I was on. I mentioned my antidepressants and he started saying I didn't need to take them, I just needed to pray. I was pissed and replied, I guess I'll just pray my gallstones away too then. Needless to say, I went with a different surgeon. When I was 21 I dislocated my shoulder and it continued to hurt for weeks. Went to a specialist. He suggested the pain was all in my head. After an MRI he realized I had a slap tear in my shoulder. So I said, looks like it's not all in my head. And he looked at me with such contempt. I never went back to that asshole. Pediatrician looked at our toddler, standing with a swayback lordosis posture. Then without considering anything else turned to my wife and said, she stands like that because you baby her too much. That was only our first clue that the doctor was a peeping moron. Grown-ups can't be autistic. During a consultation told me he refused to consider a surgery on the basis that he has the same condition and can exercise just fine. He then proceeded to actually tell me I didn't need to pursue physical wellness as I looked okay. Especially compared to the average person from your town. You know? With a wink. I like, bruh, you have me leave work to drive an hour to refuse to help me out and then insult my hometown. I disputed the $300 consultation bill on the premise that there was no service given and they dropped it. There is so much to unpack here. The fact that he dismissed your issue. The fact that he dismissed it on the basis of personal experience. The fact that he, a doctor, told you physical wellness isn't important and then predicated that on you being, I am guessing, thin. Which has its own levels to unpack. And then makes a weird comment about your hometown. It's almost hilarious because it's also absurd. You weren't sexually abused. That doesn't happen to boys. Doctor told me if I wanted to pursue treatment and get a spot on the ward, I'd need to shave all my hair off. Worth noting that the treatment had nothing to do with my head, lol. She had no bedside manner at all, was rude to the other medical professionals, etc. I told the nurse I was having doubts about agreeing to stay on the ward, but she convinced me to give it a try. First thing the doctor greets me with that first day was, "Hi, remember me? I'm that doctor you hate." What the hell kind of way is that to talk to someone sick and mentally distressed? I honestly don't know what to do with you, my psychologist at a mental health clinic on an Air Force base, who proceeded to never schedule a follow-up appointment again. I was 19 and diagnosed with clinical depression. Dude had a PhD in what to do with me. If he couldn't handle me breaking under the stress of college, then I really wonder what the hell he tells veterans. I went to the health clinic counselor at my university grad school because I was in what to me felt like a depressive episode of some sort. Couldn't sleep. couldn't motivate myself to eat. Total lack of interest in everything. That sort of thing. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if it rose to the level to merit a diagnosis. That's why I went to see them. The counselor asked about my grades. And then said that since I was clearly not struggling in class, I was fine, it would pass. They cancelled my follow-up appointment without consulting me. I quit grad school shortly after. I'd been having acute elbow pain for a while. The doc walks in and just goes, "You should cut out all dairy," without any sort of diagnosis. Then says to cut out all dairy products and lists milk, cheese and eggs. I told him eggs were not dairy. He insisted that they were. I went into the doctor's with a very painful UT. Doctor said if I wear a skirt as short as I did in these temperatures, there's no wonder my lady area is suffering from a cold. I needed to go home, change and wrap a blanket around myself to warm it up. She reluctantly agreed to do a urine sample, which showed up blood and a lot of protein. Gave me some antibiotics after much debate and gave me the skankiest look as I walked out. I swear I'm not making it up. When I was 8 years old, I was at the dentist for a cleaning. He mentioned that I had a frenulum under my tongue, which is a small and needed extra piece of tissue that attaches the tongue to the bottom of the mouth. He said that he could remove it. His reasoning being that my future girlfriends would appreciate it if I had a more mobile tongue.